Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a fascinating stack of source material and turning it into a very specific kind of shortcut.
A shortcut.
Yeah, a path through that, that paralyzing anxiety, that inner voice that just makes you freeze up right when you need to take action. We're diving into sources from Tarot by High C, and they're all focused on the energy for January 16th, 2026.
Right.
And our mission here is to really pull out the universal, the actionable knowledge. We've got astrology, a key tarot card, and this amazing story that shows how to anchor yourself.
When things start to spiral.
Exactly, when those mental fears spiral completely out of control.
And what's great about these sources is how they treat emotions. They're like puzzles, not punishments.
Puzzles, not punishments. I like that.
Yeah, so we're synthesizing the interpersonal forecasts, the Nine of Swords, which is a challenge, and this powerful story of a scribe named Amenhotep.
And the connecting thread through all of it.
It's all about how you move from that agonizing cycle of what if to the clarity of, well, what is one thing I can do right now?
Okay, let's unpack this. And I think we should start with that external environment, the broader emotional landscape that the astrology lays out.
Definitely.
It seems like the atmosphere on the 16th is one that, well, it demands a lot of care in how we communicate. The potential for friction is really high.
It is. It's a very sensitive period. The source is quite specific, actually. It notes that conversations can inadvertently open doors we thought were closed.
But at the same time, words can. Oh, what was the phrase?
Accidentally brush old bruises.
Yeah.
It's a moment of potential reactivity. People might be abrupt, maybe a little impulsive.
And that's driven by a need to just get their own needs met.
Exactly. Which can manifest as, anger or aggression sometimes.
That just sounds like a formula for miscommunication chaos.
It can be.
You're dealing with a world of people who are trying to meet their needs, but maybe without their usual filters.
Right.
So if this is the external data, how does the source suggest we process it? How do we avoid becoming abrasive ourselves?
And that is the critical pivot. The core advice is to treat emotions like information, not obstacles.
So if someone snaps, that reaction is just data.
It's data about their current state, or maybe a boundary they have. So the instruction is to give clear explanations yourself before assuming others get it.
And speak your truth, but gently.
Speak your truth while still honoring that the raw feelings in others are real. The source says respect is the first step toward any kind of repair.
I really appreciate that framing. If emotions are just data, we don't have to get paralyzed by them. But information can still be overwhelming, can't it?
Of course, especially if the world feels highly reactive.
So does the astrology give us an internal counter-strategy to that external storm?
It does, and this is where the structural shift comes in. On the morning of the 16th, there's a very distinct transition.
The moon moves into Capricorn.
Yes, and the source describes this as a brief dissolution of clarity. You know that feeling when you first wake up.
And the plan isn't quite solid yet.
Exactly that. But then it's followed by this settling into a necessary structure.
So the emotional volume drops, and the practical brain kicks in?
Precisely. Capricorn energy is about duty, it's about weight, long-term goals, tangible reality. The instinct shifts from impulse to consolidation.
So your body and mind start to prefer what's practical, what you can actually do.
Yes. It's like the universe is saying, okay, stop the arising, start building.
That makes the connection to anxiety reduction so much clearer. So if the outside world is chaotic, this Capricorn shift is prompting us to anchor ourselves.
They are anchors.
And what do those anchors look like in a modern sense?
Well, they're anything that gives you a fixed reference point. If you feel emotionally overwhelmed, the source implies you shouldn't try to solve the big interpersonal crisis right then.
You do something else.
You stick to your routine. You make a list. You clean your desk. You check off 3 things that don't require emotional negotiation.
So practical tasks become the anchors.
They keep us moored in an emotional storm.
And from that place of structure, you have the strength to speak up clearly if you need to, without mirroring the reactivity you might be facing.
Exactly. You build stable boundaries by focusing on your own measurable reality. It gives you the strength to hold your ground without, shouting anyone down.
That covers the external friction, but as the source material shifts, the real battlefield moves inward, doesn't it?
It does.
Which brings us to the psychological torment of the TarotScope for the day, the Nine of Swords. And this is an intense card.
It is. It's the very picture of waking up at 3 a.m. with a racing heart, just staring at the ceiling.
Anxiety, sleepless nights.
Profound worry over something that's weighing heavily on your mind, yes?
What's so crucial about this card, though, is that it's less about a real external threat and more about self-generated mental torment, right?
Absolutely. We're warned about being caught in these cycles of what-ifs, where our fears and negative thoughts are allowed to just take on a life of their own.
So the imagination is the problem, not reality.
The difference is stark here. Much of what torments us in this state exists primarily in the mind. It's disconnected from present measurable reality. We're running an internal worst-case scenario generator set to maximum.
We have all been there. You send one email, and 5 minutes later, you're not just worrying about a typo.
No.
You're planning your resignation and wondering if your dog will still respect you. The speed of that escalation is terrifying.
And that's why the advice here is so sharp. Worry alone drains your energy and accomplishes nothing. It empties the battery without fixing the machine.
So the first step is to separate the imagined fears from the actual present challenge.
That's the crucial step.
So what's the action then? How do you break that 3 a.m. spiral when your brain is just convinced you've ruined everything?
The tarot gives 2 big instructions. First, you practice radical separation. You name the specific, measurable thing that's the real concern.
The projected disaster.
Right. Is the problem that you haven't received a reply, or is it that you imagine you've been fired? Address the first one.
And the second instruction.
Connection. The 9 of Swords thrives on isolation. So we're told, explicitly, to reach out to someone we trust.
A friend, a colleague.
Anyone. Rather than letting those fears just fester and breed in the dark.
Because the moment you speak a fear out loud, it shrinks. It loses its power.
It often shrinks by half. You give it form, and once it has form, it can be handled.
Which brings in that hopeful metaphor from the source.
That night always gives way to dawn. This difficult mental state, no matter how crushing it feels, is temporary.
So the challenge is to be gentle with ourselves while also challenging the story our anxious mind is telling us.
Exactly. What one single, practical, concrete step can you take today to address one real concern? And that brings us right back to that structural Capricorn energy.
To make this mental warfare truly visceral, we have to turn to the StoryScope. The tale of Amenhotep, the royal scribe.
A perfect analog for the 9 of Swords in action.
A stunning, timeless depiction of it. Amenhotep, he's the picture of competence, right? Meticulous records, but his own mind betrays him.
It really does.
And the scene just immediately sets up the dread. The flickering oil lamp, the Nile whispering, Amenhotep pressing his tired eyes, unable to sleep.
And the trigger for all of it was so mundane.
So mundane, the high priest requested a routine verification of his temple tribute calculations.
Verification. Not an accusation of fraud, not an investigation. A verification.
Yet, for 3 days, Amenhotep turns that simple request into a projected tragedy.
He sees himself dragged before the court, stripped of his position, family shamed.
His name literally erased from the public record. He escalated a potential arithmetic error into complete social annihilation. He built an elaborate torture chamber entirely within his own skull.
He wasn't wrestling with the high priest. He was wrestling with phantoms.
And the terror was so physical. He's pacing his room, seeing his own shadow thin, distorted, hunched, and wondering if that anxious creature is really him.
The visual definition of internal agony.
And this is when he remembers the wisdom from his old master, Mentu.
From a time when he was paralyzed by this fear of imperfection once before.
And Mentu brings him back to reality with a single, powerful question.
A question that is the anchor. He says, you spend your days imagining disasters that have not occurred. Tell me in this moment, right now, what actual problem stands before you?
And that just forces the present moment to take over from the frantic future scenarios.
It pulls you right back to the tactile current reality.
Then the master gives him that perfect analogy.
Your fears are guards that have abandoned their posts to attack you instead.
Fear is supposed to be protective, to warn us of real danger.
But unchecked, it becomes the aggressor.
And that's when Amenhotep has his moment of clarity. He realizes he'd already checked the calculations twice. The request was routine.
And the emotional cost of his 3 days of imagining the disaster was exponentially higher than the actual cost of fixing a mistake, if one even existed.
He wasted 3 nights fighting a battle that had 0 physical presence.
Right. And the beauty of the story is how it gives us the exact path out.
Amenhotep's paralysis is the 9 of Swords.
And his way out is the practical advice of the moon in Capricorn. He stops fighting the phantoms.
Instead of spiraling, he takes these 3 essential concrete steps.
Yes. First, he stops the loop. He extinguishes the lamp and decides to just wait for the structured light of morning. A mental hard stop.
He breaks the rumination cycle. What's step 2?
He chooses connection over isolation. He decides that in the morning he'll take his scrolls to his fellow scribe and trusted friend, Mahu, for a review.
The complete opposite of the 9 of Swords. He shares the burden.
He introduces a practical, external perspective into his internal terror.
He finds his Mahu, and crucially, he reframes the worst-case scenario. He shrinks the catastrophe back down to a solvable problem.
He decides, and if there is an error, I will correct it. That is all.
And just like that, the fear of erasure becomes a simple task of correction.
The moment he makes that structural, objective decision, the knot in his chest loosens. The physical release follows the mental decision.
And the resolution is just so validating for anyone who's ever been in that spiral. Dawn came.
That gray herald.
He went to Mahu, they reviewed every column, and the work was sound.
It had always been sound.
The presentation to the high priest passed without incident, and Amenhotep learned that critical lesson.
That paralyzing worry is not preparation. Preparation involves practical steps, like asking Mahu for a review. Worry is just self-torture.
So what does this all mean for us today? I mean, these sources really drive home one core idea, don't they?
They do.
The monsters we battle in our minds are often so much more terrible, so much more exhausting than any danger we might actually face.
And if you are caught in the throes of the 9 of Swords, the solution is always found in that practical, structured energy of Capricorn.
Take one concrete step, stick to a routine.
And find your Mahu. Find a trusted perspective instead of isolating yourself with your thoughts.
Fear unchallenged grows wild like weeds.
And regardless of the darkness, dawn always comes.
That's a powerful place to land. But you have one last thought for us to chew on, right?
I do. The scribe, Amenhotep, he was consumed by the fear of having his name erased. So consider this final thought. If your current what-if scenario came true.
Let's say the typo did cost you something.
Right. How quickly would the immediate, practical task of correction eclipse the emotional memory of the fear itself? What anxiety are you currently feeding that simply needs to be fact-checked in the honest light of day?